Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today, where we will be exploring ways to optimise workplace health. Super important given our work environment and the increased, not just the regulatory obligations we have in managing our people, but the benefits that can be gained from having a healthy workplace for our people, from their health perspective, but also from organisational outcomes. So super excited about today's session. We're joined today by Dr. Liz Kirk from Beyond Ergo and Dorit Ozchikere from Spot Solutions. And the session itself, as always, will allow you to interact and think about the opportunities in your environment and ways that you can potentially, look more closely at things that you can actually do to support better health in your workplace. In the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. During that time, we hope the session provides some interesting insights into things that are actually in your control, that you can support more effective results, but actually a healthier workplace for your people. We will be having some polls throughout today's session. That you'll see when they come up that there are Q codes for you to utilise, so you can do it on your mobile phones, or alternatively, we will have the link there for you to click on, and you can navigate to those. But a great opportunity for you to give some insights into where you're at and your current state, and then obviously we'll see the results of those polls as we work through. Make sure you participate so that we can continue to, tailor the session to address the needs that you've got. And then, of course, to round it off, we'll have some Q&A at the end. I'm Fran Southwood, CEO of Auscontact and your moderator for today. Just going to run through some general housekeeping with you. As I said, remember to interact with us. That maximises the benefits that you get, but equally gives some great insights into current state of play for our presenters. And we'll have some great opportunities for insights through all of the session. If, as you're going through, you think of a great question or you've got a comment, use the QA button or the chat feature on the panel. If you're anything like me, if I don't write it down, I will forget it, and it will have been the best question and I'll never remember it again. So make sure you add it down. And if it's relevant to what's being talked about by either Liz or Dorit, I'll actually step in and we'll ask it then and there. If it's something that's totally unrelated or something we're going to cover off later, we'll leave that and make sure that we come back to it throughout the session. If you're listening through headphones and experience any issues with your connection, utilise the raise hand button on the control panel and one of the Auscontact team will jump in and try and help. Alternatively, you will have received the contact numbers in your original registration email. So jump onto there and join by phone. I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to introduce our speakers today. Firstly, we have Dr. Liz Kirk from Beyond Ergo. And we have Dorit Ozchikere from Spot Solutions. I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves in their introduction. So I'm going to hand over Dorit to you right now. Can't wait for the session.
Yep.
Let's get
Thank you very much, Fran. Thank you, Fran. Really appreciate your invite today to participate in this important webinar. My name is Dorit Ozchikere. I'm a psychosocial safety advocate at Spot Solutions. I'm also working at Barclays as a safety innovation consultant. But I'm really here today to share with you some of the insights from our recent white paper. But before we get started, just to would like to acknowledge as well, acknowledgement of country here from Perth. We do acknowledge the Wajak Bujar at Derville Yarinak Swan River, and we pay our respects to all elders past, present, and emerging, and recognize their enduring connection to this land, its water, and communities. And we extend also this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people present here today. Liz, would you like to introduce yourself before we jump into today's
Yes,
session?
hi everyone. I'm Dr. Liz Kirk and I'm the founder of Beyond Ergo. And what Beyond Ergo is designed to do is help companies reduce labour costs by building the self-care skills that people need now in this new world of tech everything, computer-based work environments. And everything that we do is about supporting staff so we can support businesses, so we can make safer, healthier, more livable work environments for these new tech world we're in. So that's me. And you'll hear more about my programs a little bit later on. And I'll hand back to Dorrit.
Well, thank you, Liz. So just before we get started, I'd like to give you a quick overview of today's agenda. We will explore the evolving workplace environment and the emerging risks that come with it, along with their associated costs. We will discuss some of the why traditional methods often fall short and make compelling case, hopefully, for investing in workplace health initiatives. We will also share some practical strategies that can greatly benefit those who spend long hours in front of screens. And we'll also emphasize the importance of empowerment, empowering leaders and managers to promote preventative initiatives and support individuals in their daily work, particularly those also who return from injuries into workplaces. So Liz, over to you.
Yes, thanks everybody. And of course, knowing that everybody's rates of screen use have really escalated over the years, before we dive into the research, we'd love to take a quick poll to see where everybody's at, the level of screen use that they're using daily. So that of course includes phones, computers, and any other digital devices. So on the next slide, you're going to see a QR code pop up. And with that slide, you'll be able to scan the QR code, or there will be a web link there for you as well. And you simply scan it and there is no sign in. It's totally anonymous. It'll just go straight into the poll and then you can start selecting your choice of what relates to you. So we're looking, here's the QR code to scan, or of course the web link if you want to go in on the web. And we'll give you a few minutes just to scan that and for the poll to come up. And as I move to the poll results, we'll start seeing those results come in. And of course, we'll give you a few minutes. It is interesting. It's almost high on or not at all. That's interesting. Okay, we just give it another 30 seconds so we can see how everyone's going. Okay. So when I think back to even 20 years ago or even 10 years ago of how many devices I didn't have and how much screen time I wasn't using, it's really interesting to see how many hours people will need to spend on screens now. We've still got a couple of people logging that. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so 63% between 7 and 9 hours a day. So this is back to you, Dorrit.
Yeah, well, I can't say that the results of the polls are surprising. We did expect this results to be present here among people. And what we can actually would like to see where the research actually support this trajectory is that the digital, as we know, the digital work resolution, the work the work quite changed in the last couple of decades. Liz, if you don't mind, just to flip a slide, thank you. So we do know that the workplace is going through a major transformation, especially with the growing use of digital tools and the enhance of productivity through automation, data analysis. We just spend more times in front of screens. And this shift was highlighted in a report by the World Economic Forum, which predicts 26% increase in digital jobs in the next 5 years. And if we think about hybrid work environment, many companies have adopted remote and hybrid work models, which provides a great deal of flexibility and autonomy to workers. However, these setups comes with their own set of challenges. We're dealing with real issues such as long hours spent at desks, insufficient home offices arrangements, and the risk of increased mental strain. Now, recently, we've been hearing about suggestions from our government to promote return to work to offices. But we just need to keep in mind that while we navigate through these discussions, the challenges posed by long hours of screen times are still very much real for many, many workers. In our white papers, we really highlight a few risks that are linked to prolonged sedentary work and screen use, and we will cover them in more details. Some of them that we'll focus on includes high physical demands, visual workload, chronic pain, high mental strain, and cognitive fatigue. So let's break down each one. The first, probably the most problematic raising issue is musculoskeletal disorder, which is a key concern that affects our muscles, joints, and nerves. Common examples include back pain, neck strain, carpal tunnel syndrome, and several risk factors contribute to these issues, such as poor posture, repetitive movement, long hours of sitting, as well as gender and age. For instance, an aging workforce is particularly vulnerable to work-related musculoskeletal disorder due to longer recovery times. And it's important to recognize that these conditions can lead to significant medical cost and decreased productivity in the workplace. And we'll delve into the financial implications a bit more in a bit more details later on. A second issue that came out from the research was digital eye strain. As we spend more time in front of screens, issues like high screen brightness and dry eyes become more common. Many of us find ourselves dealing with discomfort, headaches, blurred vision, and disrupted sleep. And it's important to know that these are not just as a result of a fatigue. They really reflect the long-term impact on our eye health, which in turn affects our productivity, well-being, and overall health to be less effective or more challenging. And these challenges really highlights the urgent need for effective interventions and focused prevention strategies to address these escalating issues. And what I really found interesting throughout this research was that we already acknowledged that musculoskeletal disorders and digital eye strains are becoming increasingly common. But what was really an eye-opener for me was really the link into chronic pain and the trigger of negative emotions. So we know that if these issues are not addressed in time, they can become, we can develop chronic pain, which is a complex condition that significantly disrupt both emotional well-being and physical health. And that leads to feelings such as anxiety, stress, anger, and even depression. The cycle that actually happens when someone experiences chronic pain is that the anger and frustration can actually amplify the pain, creating a cycle where negative moods and pain constantly feed one another. And anxiety from fear, such as or fear from re-injury, for example, or social isolation because people can't attend work, that can worsen the pain. And while chronic pain often coexist with depression, as we know, this whole cycle is very complicated to manage. Well, next we will cover some of the high mental strain. So people don't necessarily have to have or experience chronic pain to be exposed to psychosocial strains in work environment. This cycle of poor work design that includes job demands, high job demands, insufficient job resources, lack of autonomy, minimal support from peers or management, inadequate feedback, and just blurred boundaries between work and home life. These can all add up to be quite impactful on our well-being. So some examples would be, if we think about isolation, as I mentioned, many people work from home. If they don't have frequent check-ins from their team or don't have these daily discussions, what happens is they can find themselves quite isolated from their team. And that by itself can cause anxiety and depression over time. If we think about cognitive workload, the nature of work environment, screen work environment is very rapid. We constantly reply on emails or doing multitasking at a time, which can severely enhance or increase cognitive overload. And as I mentioned, the blurred boundaries between just losing the work-life balance. This is very easy when we have the laptop available. And according to the poll results, I can see that many people work 10 to 15 hours. That's just an indication that people do work a lot from home. So overall, we need to understand that these heightened stress levels can lead to muscle tension, burnout, and reduce engagement, which the results for organization is loss of productivity and job satisfaction. So next, I will hand over to Liz to present a relevant case study. Thank you, Liz.
There you go, you can hear me now. Thanks, Dorothy. And yes, the research provides an important overview, but understanding the personal cost of these injuries really makes those statistics real. Employees now work and seek to navigate an increased range of work options, including working remotely, using laptops, sit-stand workstations, activity-based workplaces, multiple screen mobile devices, and of course, our increasingly sedentary work. That shift in work opportunities and tools has gradually limited the effectiveness of traditional support like wellness support, ergonomic checklists, and workstation assessments. And as an example, I'd like to share the story of Jean, who had worked very happily in a call centre for 7 years and eagerly embraced the opportunity to work from home, with the expectation that she would have time for yoga, study, and more time with friends. But that's not what actually happened. Despite the use of her ergonomic checklist and a brand new ergonomic chair, within 6 months, Jean had developed severe neck and back pain and shoulder pain that required physio and cortisol injections. By the time Jean had contacted me, she was already scheduled for shoulder surgery. The ergonomic checklist failed to provide guidance on key issues such as setting up a laptop correctly, correctly adjusting her chair, environmental factors like light and air quality, and essential movement breaks. It also failed to cover workstation setup constraints. And in Jean's case, the dressing table she was using had drawers underneath that prevented her from lifting her chair to the right height. And the reality for Jean's managers was that they really only had time to check that Jean had submitted her ergonomic checklist and a few photos of her workstation. So there was no real follow-up or conversations about the support that she needed. Now add to these how staff respond to increased mental and physical stress. Jean avoided revealing her pain to managers in case it went onto her HR file, and she was either seen as a troublemaker or it affected her chances of promotion. Jean's shoulder injury was also causing her great mental, physical, and economic distress. And while the financial cost to a business of an injured employee can be significant, it is the employee themselves that cover 70% of the cost of an injury. So a significant musculoskeletal disorder like Jean's frozen shoulder can reduce a person's earning capacity for the next 4 to 5 years. Now, if you would like to read the whole story of Jean, there's actually a blog post available on my website for that. And I'm just going to see if I can pop that in the chat for you.
We'll include it in what we send out, Liz, when for all of the participants as well.
Great. Okay, so that's Jean's, and I'm sure a lot of you have had similar experiences with staff not really communicating, that are in pain, and finding out ways to support them is a real issue now. So with those similar experiences, we want to capture your ideas on what you feel would be the most important workplace health and safety and wellness elements that should be included to support staff during these long hours of computer work. And again, the poll will come up on the next page. It should automatically refresh, but there will be a QR code if you'd like to scan that again. And again, we'd be really happy for you to share your insights on ways that we can further support staff. Here's your QR code, and once you scan that, or if your phone should automatically refresh, and then we can see your ideas come in, you can add as many ideas as you like.
While people are responding to that, Liz, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of the time in a workplace or in an organisation, we have our standard component of this in induction and part of the onboarding process. You know, you have your mandatory conversations about, you know, making sure you've got the right setup, all of that sort of thing. But I wonder, you know, how many sort of still see that as a tick and flick, because often it's the continued application of that in the workplace. So it's not immediately connected to that onboarding period. Quite often it's 12 months down the track or whatever. And by then that practice and the habits are all so entrenched that it's almost that when we're presenting it as an issue, we're not really kind of giving much insight into what those potential risks are. We talk about, you know, the need to make sure you've got things set up properly, but we don't really take it to that next level.
And you've just covered 3 really important points. Businesses are already doing the best they can by providing the right information, but that information comes in as knowledge, so people aren't sure how to apply it so it works for them. Then, of course, it's that constant feedback. You don't get new work skills until you practice them and rehearse them and have a bit of coaching and things like that. So, and as you say, when people work at workstations, they're often in awkward postures because that's what feels natural and normal to them, or it works with their tools, and they don't realise that they've slowly got an injury occurring because it feels like a natural posture, and these injuries slowly creep up on people. It's not like lifting a box and hurting your back. It's really hard to pinpoint what it was that caused that ache to turn into pain and even an injury.
Yeah. It's got some great suggestions here, though.
I love the way breaks is really absolute. Movement is medicine, absolutely.
And it's, you know, the other part of this that's challenging, and I think you both covered it off in those early slides, that there's a two-way obligation here. There is employer, as an employer, how do we have a safe environment? How do we make sure the tools are appropriate? How do we make sure that, the environment actually supports well-being? But again, leaders aren't mind readers. So there's this other part of this that is around employee. And, again, the employee needing to understand, and, what you've just said is really a key component, that you actually don't necessarily know what you're doing is leading to that pain. And often it's referred pain and all those sort of complicated components. So it definitely is two-way.
It's hard. I mean, people have a responsibility to stay fit for work, but if they don't know what the risks are or how to protect themselves, it's pretty hard to do. So, and that's it. There is a hidden blind spot when it comes to these risks. And thank you again for all the ideas that you've shared, and we'll put those slides into the slides that we send out after this. And I'm sure you've all wondered about the change in workplace health and safety and wellness support that staff need. And as Dorrit has already shown, despite investment in ergonomic equipment, workplace policies, musculoskeletal disorders, chronic health conditions, mental health challenges continue to rise. And we have to ask why. And the traditional hierarchy, the safety hierarchy, has really served us well. But that conventional 5-tier hierarchy was designed for an industrial setting where managers had control over physical hazards. The digital revolution has demanded a shift in our mindset about workplace health and safety for these computer-based work environments, because in today's increasingly flexible and remote work environments, where staff have to manage an increasingly complex range of work options and work tools, managers have significantly less control over workspaces and work behaviours. And this reality makes it essential to expand the way we think about workplace health and safety training, to go beyond the checklist and the workstation assessment to include a broader range of skill-based ergonomic and self-care competencies, real work skills. And this need was highlighted in the new research and industry reports, expanding areas of concern and revealing a growing range of mental and physical health risks and safety risks that businesses have never had to manage before. This became really evident during the widespread adoption of laptops and mobile devices as primary work tools during the COVID shutdown. That shift increased all the poor postures, the longer hours of screen use, increased sedentary behaviour, and they all combined to, of course, increase fatigue, headaches, musculoskeletal pain. The research is also showing that that slouched posture that we so commonly see with laptops actually restricts blood flow and oxygen to the brain, and that affects your cognitive function and potentially increases the long-term risk of cognitive decline and even dementia. There is also a strong link of that downward head posture with feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, anxiety, and depression. And given how often we now see people even walking around with their head down looking at their phones or sitting at their laptops looking down, I just wonder how much that's contributed to our need to expand mental health first aid programs in the workplace. These risks are not limited to older employees. Gen Zs are now regularly entering the workforce already injured and are already taking more time off for neck and back pain than any other generation in the workforce. Excessive screen use has also been linked to cognitive dementia, which is a condition where that mental overstimulation is associated with cognitive, emotional, and behavioural disorders. So when combined with increasing sedentary work and lifestyle, these risks multiply, affecting employees of all ages. With an ageing workforce and young employees entering the workforce already injured and experiencing health issues, businesses that fail to recognise and address these challenges will be quietly losing money through lost productivity, workers' compensation claims, and higher staff turnover. So proactively addressing these new challenges and risks are no longer optional. It's become a business imperative. And Dorrit will now walk you through some of those costs.
Thank you, Liz. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the cost tied with physical and psychosocial risks we've discussed so far. Work-related musculoskeletal disorders alone cost Australia an outstanding amount of $24 billion during the 2012-2013 period, and we saw an increase in the last decade. When we factor in chronic pain, the total rises to $139 billion in healthcare expenses and lost productivity. Mental health issues and suicide result in cost of about 70 million annually in Australia, while the indirect costs stemming from compromised health and shorter life expectancy are around $150 billion. And we should also consider the hidden costs such as presenteeism. This is where we sit in the work environment, but our minds are completely somewhere else. Maybe because of stressors, other stressors, or maybe because of just pain. And these presenteeism can be 2 to 3 times more expensive than absenteeism. Other factors include high turnover rates, the loss of institutional knowledge, and the considerable expenses associated with recruitment and training. In fact, replacing an employee typically costs about 1.5 times their annual salary. And of course, we have increased insurance premium as well. So we do understand that by prioritizing employees' health through mental health support, ergonomic solutions, training in personal protective behaviors, and flexible work arrangement, organization can significantly enhance employees' physical and mental well-being. And this approach boosts engagement, can boost ideally engagement, productivity, and lead to considerable cost saving. The Mackenzie's Health Institution, they published an estimation of potential global economic cost estimated between 3.7 trillion and 11.7 trillion. And KPMG Australia adds to that Australia alone can save potentially approximately $90 million. So yeah, definitely looking towards proactive rather than reactive approach will certainly have its own benefits for both employees and organization, I must mention. Now, this slide actually pretty much illustrates our advocacy here today for collaborate top-down and bottom-up approach. That really links to what you mentioned before, Fran, about a joint effort in order to address these issues. So to discuss this whole cycle and really address, we do like to see more employees taking part in consultations and really collaborate in data entry, just to understand the reasons, the work environment state, basically. And we will delve into more details now in the next couple of slides regarding the role of employees and the role of the regulatory bodies, including organizations and leaders. So back to you, Liz.
Okay, sorry about that. As Dorrit research shown, there is a high personal and business cost of these modern health risks, triggering leaders to look beyond traditional engineering and administrative controls to new ideas and new approaches. This is also because, as mentioned, managers have less control over work environments and work behaviours, and so they understand the need to empower employees with a broader range of ergonomic and self-care competencies, giving them the ability to recognise risk and take proactive steps to protect themselves. And at Beyond Ergo, we've embraced that concept as regenerative health. So regenerative health goes beyond the conventional wellness model by fostering that holistic, proactive and sustainable approach to workplace well-being. Instead of relying on the reactive short-term fixes, this approach integrates well-being into daily work, addressing not just physical health, but mental, emotional and social resilience. It recognises that work environments shape health outcomes and that true wellness isn't just an individual's responsibility. It requires a workplace culture that actively supports well-being at every level. For individual knowledge workers, that means building these personal protective behaviours, what we call PPBs. These practical skills translate the ergonomic, health and wellness recommendations into simple, effective actions so employees know how to apply them. With the right support, such as an in-house champion, the PPBs become automatic self-care habits. This fills that workplace health and safety gap with practical solutions that prevent discomfort and long-term injury without the need of special equipment or additional technology. We extend your current training to build these self-care habits through a vet-style approach to training that ensures employees gain practical, transferable skills. These include being able to personalise the ergonomics to match their own stature, a much broader range of positive work habits to enhance comfort and productivity, and then the targeted physical conditioning that they need to speed recovery and prevent a minor ache from escalating into painful and expensive injuries. These programs are practical and holistic in approach, shifting our mindset from compliance-based workplace and health and safety to that regenerative health idea, ensuring that employees don't just understand the theory, they can apply that knowledge as self-care actions, no matter where they work. That impact of these programs is a measurable reduction in overuse injuries, absenteeism, burnout, and of course, enhanced engagement, retention, and productivity. So let me give you a quick demonstration of how that extending your training can work, that translation. And by giving you 3 quick examples of how we translate the recommendations into self-care actions. Now, an important starting point for self-care is to build that physical awareness, so you know how your body feels. So you can pinpoint when an ache starts and you know when you're sitting there with tense muscles or in an awkward posture. And we do this by practicing little actions that build postural mindfulness. And an example is to overcome this forward neck posture that we're increasingly seeing for even Gen Zs, even kids now, they're getting this forward head posture. So this is important because if you don't know how your body feels, you can't return to the recommended relaxed, neutral work posture, and you can't take actions to stop an ache from escalating. So maintaining good posture is important both for mental and physical health. As soon as we start to slouch and our body is out of alignment, it causes all kinds of stresses and strains, and that leads to the physical discomfort starting. When we slouch, we also start to feel old, and that's not good for your mental health. We also start to look frail, and that makes us more vulnerable to verbal and physical abuse. So that's not good for our safety. So we need to look strong and we need to build that strength up in good posture. So as a practice, do this with me. Let's check the posture as you're sitting there. Now with relaxed shoulders, our feet on the floor or on a supported surface, we're going to lift our spine to the sky. Think tall head, tuck your chin down slightly, think your ear over your shoulder, over your hip, and pulling your shoulders back. Who's feeling a bit of a stretch? And let's try that a different way. A different way to check. We're going to put our palms up and do this with me. We're going to take our arms straight out to the side with our palms facing up and then slowly lower your arms back down so the back of your hands either touch the side of your chair or the side of your legs. Who's feeling a much bigger stretch now? Because that stretch is actually pulling you back into that nice upright posture. So we want to avoid that out of line, check, took, neck, look. So checking posture so we can return to a nice, relaxed, neutral posture is really important. And the second way I want to demonstrate how we apply these recommendations as skills is to demonstrate the actions of personalizing the ergonomic recommendations to match your stature. Now, one of the most common things I see are people with their screens either too high or too low. The ergonomic recommendations say the center of your screen should be 17.5 degrees below eye level, and nobody knows what that means. And since when I were doing my research and going into contact centers, people often had their screen too high, and now we've all gone to laptops and people have them flat on the surface, so they're all too low. But again, if you do this with me, if you put your arm parallel to the work surface and point to your screen, your fingertips are now about 17.5 degrees below your eye level. So you should now be pointing to the center of your screen. And if you're not, you know you have to either lift your screen or lower your screen. And that question of people using laptops flat on the work surface, which obviously means they're not in an ergonomic position, makes managers question if they're meeting their duty of care of creating safe work environments, but that's probably another story. So by using your own anthropometry to set up your work equipment, it doesn't matter if you're 4 foot nothing or 6'8", or I should say 140 centimeters or 195 centimeters, sitting, standing, laptop, desktop, it works for you. You have now refined that ergonomic recommendation so it's exactly right for you, and you can know that you've set up that screen height in the best possible way that you can. You've also identified if there's a barrier for you being able to set up your workstation in the right way that's best for you. And for the third display, we want that positive work behaviours. We want to be able to make sure that we have a broader range of recommendations beyond doing a couple of stretches and taking the stairs at lunchtime. So now I want to introduce you to the roll, reset, relax. And out of all the things we're talking about today in terms of practical application, if there's one action I want you to remember, it's this one. Because making this action a daily habit can reduce neck, up and back shoulder by 50%, just by making this a habit that you do regularly throughout the day. So this is a vital work skill, and I'm going to get you to do it with me. It's vital for computer work because as we work at computers, we build up a lot of tension in our neck and shoulders. And the only way to release that tension is by doing big movements and consciously relaxing. So again, sit back in your chair with nice supported feet. Move your chin back slightly. Again, tall head, ear over your shoulder, over your hip. And now pull your shoulders up as hard as you can and back as hard as you can, and down as hard as you can, and forward as hard as you can. And now rotate your shoulders back a few times and forward a few times. Who's hearing a nice crunch and crackle? Oh yeah. Now take a big breath and consciously relax your shoulders and drop your hands and relax into your chair. That roll, reset, relax, as I say, is really important, not just because it releases that neck and shoulder tension, but it also resets your posture back to relaxed and neutral. So you can check if you've actually been leaning to one side. So whenever you find yourself, you've been leaning forward for a while, you've been maybe reading and mousing a lot, or you've just been sitting down for a long time, you do the roll, reset, relax, consciously relax, and reset your posture back to relaxed and neutral. Now, remember, the whole point of this skill-based training, like the Beyond Ergo programs, is to give employees the self-care competencies to understand and manage the risks that can lead to pain and the chance of an injury. So these skills will enable them to increase their own comfort and productivity. But another very important element of workplace health and safety, of course, is leadership. And that's what Dorrit is going to share with us now.
Well, thank you, Liz, for a fantastic demonstration. I certainly used that since our last webinar. So I would like to focus, you mentioned the crucial role of employees playing in managing their own health and safety, which we can view as our bottom-up approach. And conversely, the influence of top-down risk management is also a key. And we do need to understand that according to the work health and safety regulations, employers must identify, assess, and control risks. And when we think about hazard manual tasks, we often think about people doing labor work or lifting heavy equipment or twisting their body quite repetitively. But the law is actually very clear because prolonged awkward posture is considered as hazard manual task, which means that sitting in front of computer is actually risk identified in the regulations. And we also need to understand that the risk increases with time and repetition, and the law defines that 30 minutes at a time or 2 hours per shift. This is the threshold, but we know that most digital work exceeds this daily. And when we think about what the regulatory bodies included within Soft Work Australia, there are great guidance over there. We will share some of the links post webinar for you to look at, but great guidance from Safe Work Australia include the setup of ergonomic workstations, take movements breaks, design an area for recovery. So if we have all this and the framework exists, my question is, why the message is still very, very quiet? Because millions of workers around the world work daily in a very risky posture, which means that the message should be enhanced by regulatory bodies and by organizations as well. So I had actually a very interesting conversation yesterday in one of in Perth Safety Forum with the head of Safe Work Australia, which say that some of the key aspects that I'll provide in a second are done, but some are not because of personal constraints, and it's also about the ministry to actually be involved. So it's definitely discussions that we're going to implement in the near future, because the message should be clear out there. So in the next slide, if we can have a look, we really want to see some targeted campaigns such as ads. If we think about the violence against health practitioner, we saw lots of ads in bus stations or television that just to promote and increase this awareness of individuals. But also we can target the same type of campaigns regarding sedentary work environment. We also can create some engagement kits that will include postures to just remind people to get out of the chair and move around. We can use real case studies, such as organizations that already implemented some initiatives and saw the return on investment. Cross-sector alignment would be a national initiative, cross sectors, and probably the easiest, if personnel constraints are not a problem, just regular inspections of sedentary work places. But we do need to remember that the law is the minimal standards for leadership practice, because organization will take these laws, they will produce policies and procedures to be compliant with the law, and can invest also resources towards training, inductions, and these are all very, very important. But when we zoom in a bit, we do know that leaders are the ones to deliver a clear message by words and actions. They are the cultural shapers of our organizations. So if they live by health and safety as a core value, they will potentially will see an improvement in performance retention, and obviously will have a robust risk management. So what we don't want to see is leaders who normalize skipped breaks or rewarding burnout pace or ignoring discomfort signals, because they can increase awareness and they can promote safe, sustainable work habits, and they can say, model, and permit these workplace norms. And this is about really building up the psychological safety within workplaces, so people will feel comfortable enough to have frequent break and look after their own health. So I do invite you to reach out to me if you have any questions or queries regarding how we can reduce psychological hazards in the workplace and how we can develop leadership capabilities that enable us to support our teams, drive psychological safety that will prompt people to raise their concerns and challenges in order to mitigate these risks in a timely manner, because time is important before they become a chronic injury. And I also provide, as I mentioned, some of the great links from Safe Work Australia for your knowledge. So yeah, back to you, Liz.
Sorry about that. And yes, as Dorrit and I have given you a lot to consider, from the changing health risks to potential cost to your business and possible legal implications if these health risks are not addressed. Clearly, extending your current training is an obvious, cost-effective way to do that. But I also know that as managers, you're already juggling 100 things at once, and the last thing you need is another complex program to manage. And that's why I'd like to offer you the opportunity to be part of a small number of contact centres that are taking part in our pilot study. And this pilot will be the beta testing of the updated and extended version of the training that we already provide. So working with me is not just training, it's a collaboration built with years of listening and research, and of course, that interchange between learning from people on the ground, your people, and the research that backs it up. It's a very collaborative process. And I can see that we're getting a bit short of time, so I was going to give you an example of how that works. But basically, we're offering the opportunity to join this pilot program, which is the full program of extending the training you're providing to translate the recommendations and support your employees. It's a trial of that next evolution of the research that backs up the training that we already designed. And of course, it's going to tackle this extended range of mental and physical health risks that your team are already facing with practical evidence-based challenges. So if you join our pilot study, you'll get that high impact training at almost no cost, which is a price that will never be offered again. It will include the reports and presentation of results. You'll see real improvements in performance and comfort and morale in your teams, and we'll help shape the new industry standards for screen-based work. And most importantly, we will be supporting you every step of the way, because I'll be right there delivering the training, answering your questions, and ensuring the training is refined to fit your team and work environments. So spots are limited. If you'd like to register or just find out more information about being part of the pilot program, just put yes in the chat or email me directly, and we'll make sure we're being in contact to give you that more information. So I hope you join us in leading the way to creating these safer, healthier work environments for the contact centres that we know and love. And Fran, that's the end of our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. And everybody, obviously, we always send information out after. So we'll send out the slides, which give you some of this information that you can take away and absorb and revisit. We'll also include the link to both Liz and Derek to allow you to tap in. I know we've already got some people jumping in saying yes, please, in the chat, but we'll build that into it, because I guess there's a couple of things that you guys have both really highlighted here, and I think we're going to see this increase. If you think about our obligations under Work Health and Safety Act, regardless of what state you are in, it doesn't just require you to identify those manual tasks that are hazardous. So again, everything you've just talked about and Direct, you really highlighted that well, because this is a manual task that is a high risk.
Indeed.
The Act actually requires you to eliminate or control the risks as far as reasonably practicable. Now, in the past, it has been kind of accepted that it was enough to have it in your onboarding, to have a bit of a tick and flick. It was never actually changing the results, though. We have seen marked increases to workers' compensation premiums, and most of you would know that is a result of the number of claims that you make as far as where you sit in the industry. So you'll have a minimum within the industry, you'll have an average, and then you'll be able to plot where you actually sit in there. And your costs are generated based on, number one, the industry norm, equally the utilization and the impact that you as an organization are physically having. So there are physically ways that you can actually make a real change to that. We see some organizations that are sitting in the top 5% of their industry, which is astronomical. Like, we're not talking small dollars here. They work it out on a per employee perspective, and this is material financial implications. So anything you can do here can support some of those material costs changing. And probably the other important thing, Dorit, I think you were talking about, and Liz as well, about the number of people that are joining our organisations already injured. Now, again, it isn't visible. And I think there was a comment here from V in relation to the invisible nature of some of these issues, right? But if you think about the mobility within our industry, if we are not actually doing this for ourselves and others are not doing it for their own environment as well, we are inheriting the application of inherent risk from every other person that our people have voted for, right? Yeah. So it's got to start somewhere. And the more we can contribute to, the findings, the pilots, the research, and the opportunity to actually build that community of practice and contribute to the standards, the better we will inherit healthy people. Like the more likelihood of actually creating a minimum standard that is then actually what plays out within your environment. Like, to me, it's a no-brainer that we just got to do something here, given, the inherent risk with the environment. You only have to look at Fair Work, and our environment, our contact centre environment, is spelt out when it comes to high-risk environments, because it's super easy in a leadership role to say, sorry, guys, we're too busy. That break, we're not going to have that break, or we're not going to, don't get up and stretch. And it's easy to forget, or easy to not prioritize. And unfortunately, our obligation means you must be prioritizing. And we are going to see Fair Work, and we are going to see, the Work Safety Act actually become more prominent in breach finding over the next 5 to 10 years. We're already seeing signals and indications in the market of that. So again, the opportunity for people to get ahead of this is really important. And again, the respect that it provides to your people, particularly if they've got ongoing challenges that need to be addressed to the right environment, this actually shows them your investment in them as people, not just as workers that are trying to come. So,
and I agree with everything you mentioned, Fen. I would just like to add on top of that, consultation with employees is the legal obligation as well. is the best practice. And I think I understand the constraints of contact centers, engaging with clients, and there is an element of time and KPIs, and this is all important. I think it's perhaps more frequent or high-paced work environment might be than others, but in its fundamental way, it does exist in many organizations where you prioritize KPIs over well-being because you would like to just produce more work, to be very productive. And this is why we tend to sit in our home environment and do some work, because we really want to achieve more because we only have 24 hours a day. But I think a key important message as well is, and that actually relates to V's comment here. From my perspective, the lenses that I wear at the moment, business psychology, is to really create this psychological safety within your work environment, which will enable people to come and speak out and mention that they have these needs and they have these trains, and they just require some frequent breaks, and that all links to a cycle where you discuss with your employees and enable them, and they will actually once you take and provide this platform for people to speak up, you also return their autonomy and accountability to this process. So you get more people engaged within this joint effort, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And it drives productivity, right? Healthy people are more productive.
Absolutely.
But again, there's a couple of great comments here. And V, I think you've nailed it. There is this need to really ensure leaders and managers really understand not just the implication of not having this working in the work environment, but actually their obligation to build a safe and, Dorit, you touched on it there, an environment where people can safely raise concerns and the rest of it. But actually, our scheduled environment, this should all be part of it. It is a legal obligation. So even if we just take it back to, strip it back to bare bones, there is an absolute obligation here to be ensuring the safety of our people and ourselves, right? So there's so much opportunity. Sorry,
that point's well made, because I think many managers I've talked to, they understand, they just don't know how to do it. They just didn't have the support or knowledge to do it, or the backing. But now that it's all bubbling up and we're getting more research, and the regulators are more aware, and we're changing our mindset from, working with computers as, how hard could it be, to actually recognizing the risk, then, we can start this shift to supporting managers so they can support their staff.
We could talk about this all day long. I know we've just gone over time, and I apologise to everybody. It's a topic that we're going to hear more and more about, and we need to. We need to actually be ahead of the game on this. Often the impact of this is the next manager or the next leader, as opposed to necessarily you. And sometimes that makes it easy to kind of forget or kind of deprioritize the importance of getting this right, because its impact is not always direct. But I think the important thing to remember is you're getting someone else's impact. You're taking someone else's indirect impact of not getting this right. So we all have an obligation to actually contribute to making this right for people, because, at the end of the day, we want our people to leave work in as good a condition as they started. We want them to have amazing, great lives outside of work. And the last thing that actually contributes to that is if they're in constant pain and they're restricted and limited because of the environment we're creating for them. So, Liz, Dorit, thank you so much. We love the opportunity to have your expertise and come as some of the insights. Liz, I know every time I speak to you, I sit a little bit straighter in my chair and I roll my shoulders back. But those three examples of, just those simple things that are in our control, they're things we should all be doing, but we easily forget. So again, the importance of getting this in front of everybody particularly given the environment and the opportunity it leads to as far as the health and wellbeing of our people. So thank you for today. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. We'll send information out, and we can't wait for the next session, guys, where we'll take this further.
Thanks
Thank
for
you very
having
much, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Take care.